All right, we are live recording. So I'm excited about this. This is legitimately now not my first interview ever, but legitimately my first podcast ever. And I'm actually really excited to have Albert Currasco as my first guest because Albert is a former corporal in the Marine Corps. He's a fitness enthusiast and competitor, and he's a dear friend. I've known him for several years. I've worked with him within the design and screen printing business. And I'm just ecstatic to bring this story to the podcast. And I'm excited to introduce you. So thanks for doing this, man. I really appreciate you taking time to do this.
Yeah, of course. It's always been good times working with you, like over the years, ever since we met. So when you told me that you were getting this going, it just felt like, wow, we just have one more thing that we can continue collaborating on. So I was really happy about it.
Absolutely. And it's like so much more like, to your point, it was so much more genuine, like the connection that we're having about this. And for those that are listening, right, it's the Wisemen Project, which is really about men and men's holistic health and really men's mental health, because we're talking about burnout and stress and depression, anxiety, but also all the things that you're doing through your fitness journey and everything else. Like they just tether so nicely together,
Yeah, exactly. And if you would have told me that we were going to have this conversation, going on 5 years ago now that we met,
Right.
I would have probably lauged.
Right.
At that time, even I was still in denial about a lot of the stuff I've become more open about. Like I would have still been pretending none of that shit really ever happened. Sorry.
Yeah. No, swear, man, swear away. This is like there's no restrictions here.
Oh yeah, well,
yeah, that's exactly it. Like me too. Like we spoke a little bit about this, but like we go through our personal journeys, but we kind of keep them to ourselves for the most part, especially men in society. So nobody really knows those stories until it gets to a point where you're like, I want to share this. And then you start connecting with people on a whole other freaking level that you're like, oh shit, I didn't even know you're doing the same shit I'm doing, or you're talking about the same shit I'm talking about. So yeah, man, this is like, and I think too, if I may add, that the timing of this with everything going on in the world is again, like another sign for me, like, and we'll get into it, but you launched this video promo about Warrior Soul Youth Academy, a fucking really moving video for me, like even personally. And the timing, the timing and everything that we're going through and what people are dealing with isolation and not having, face-to-face interaction and not having their safety nets in place to deal with those things and deal with the stress. I mean, it's become another epidemic outside of the pandemic.
Yeah, I agree. As I put out that message, which obviously we're going to talk about in a minute, the responses that I've gotten have been so pure. Some of the guys I served with in the Marines have actually messaged me back saying some of the struggles they're going through. And, I got out in 2013 is when my contract ended. So a lot of those guys have been out for a while too. Funny enough, I did a push where I just told everyone that I know what I'm doing, like formally. I messaged every person on my Facebook, for example. And I've been more transparent about what I'm up to. And I had friends from high school reach out to me. Unfortunately, one of them actually said that they recently just tried to kill themselves and like they were in recovery like after that. And some of my friends that have kids are like, dude, I'm not in a place where I can help you, but I know that we needed this growing up. And they're like, I'm going to share because I know like I want people to know about it. But it was like just how real the responses that I've been getting are tell me I'm doing the right thing. Like I lived this and I've been able to translate it in a way that I can actually implement change in society. And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So other people that are, they heard my call and it's just really cool to see. So I do have faith that in the next year, it'll all come to life very well.
I think so too. I think, one, thanks for sharing that, but also two, I think anything that you do that's from your internal purpose or your internal compass or something that comes from honesty and from passion is always going to be successful. And it doesn't even need to be on a financial level, like a monetary level. It just needs to be something that's serving the greater good of people. And so I believe it too. When I saw that movement, I was like, oh shit, man, this is fucking amazing. Like, just the opening sequence of seeing you doing what you do and what you love, and then how that ties to your journey and and then, you know, your mission behind all that. Like that is so fucking powerful, and that will be successful because of that. You know what I mean?
Well, funny enough, you had no idea ever. You know, like you
None.
and I have just worked on work. I think we had a couple conversations one time when I was telling you about my ex and stuff, but
Yep.
we never really went deep like that.
No. No.
So I can only imagine what that was like. Like, whoa, what that's really Albert talking right now from a
Yeah.
lot of people in my life.
Yeah. And I think too, as like, because even for me, I've gone through my own shit, you know, and we always think it's like not going to be received well, or it's going to be weird. But then you realize, like, you say it and you get this response back that you're like, I didn't expect any of that. Like, it's totally inverse of what I thought was going to come back. And now you're now getting connected to all these people that are saying, like, this is amazing. Like, this needs to happen. You know, this is great.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this, man, because we never really dove into your Marine, you know, background. And I know we have a common friend named Chris Albert, who's obviously been a fitness buff for years. He worked in the fitness industry. You guys are friends. And he's the one that hooked us up, for anyone that's wondering, right? When we started working together doing design stuff. Tell me a little bit about that, because the Marine journey, you know, my brother's in the military. Part of the reason why he went to the military was to build his self-confidence. And he's going through a lot of addiction problems. And so tell me about that, man. Like, just tell me about some of the background in that.
So I have quite a bit, since now that I've done a lot of my shadow work, and I have a deep understanding of how that became. So just to be completely honest, my mom's from Mexico. She had this huge gratitude of the opportunity of what America was. So from young little babies, me and my brother, she always told us, like, oh, I want you guys to serve in the military. So my mom's the one who planted that. And we would watch war movies, and, you know, also all those like 90s action heroes like Arnold and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Those are my mom's like boyfriends, right? So I grew up idolizing that, and Rambo and shit, you know. So I just kind of had it very early. Like, I was like, okay, I'm going to serve my country, because like that was the thing. And then, you know, 9/11 happened when I was in 7th grade. So when high school came around, I had always known I'm going to join the military. It turned out that I was pretty smart. So I got into UCSB as well as a few other universities. And my recruiter, he was like, you know, if you join the reserves, you actually can apply for the Marine officer program, then you can be an officer. And I had no idea what any of this meant. You know, in my head, I just thought like I was going to just join the military and do whatever they told me. And my brother ended up going active duty right out of high school. And I got set up to join the reserves, go to UCSB. I applied for the Marine officer program, and I got in. I had built my entire life identity around the idea that I was going to be a Marine Corps officer, like for a career. And, you know, you talk to the guys who I went to PLC with, that was like the actual officer candidate school, you know, it's like boot camp for officers, basically. They know, because I took that seriously. When I completed the second course, or second increment of OCS, I was ranked number 4 in the company. I was an honor graduate at OCS. And, you know, we washed out quite a few people. You know, that was a tough school. If anybody tells you that OCS was easy, I guarantee you they didn't graduate in the top 10. Yeah, it's a little different. You know, because in boot camp, you're going to graduate no matter what. Right. At OCS, you can actually quit and go home, because they don't want just anyone to be a Marine officer. At least that's the idea. Right. So I dealt with a lot of guilt in college, because my second year, my unit was called to go to Afghanistan. I ended up not being allowed to go on that deployment, because if I went, they would basically drop me from officer candidate school. And so I ended up staying. I finished OCS, and I decided, like, I'm going to be a Marine officer. That was the goal. And then anyway, like, there was just so much happening in my life where I realized, like, the Marine Corps is probably not the best thing for me. And so when I decided that I didn't want to stay in the Corps anymore, and I wasn't going to be a Marine officer, I kind of dealt with this identity crisis, because my whole life that I thought that's what I was going to be. Right. And funny enough, that's when I just kind of took a gamble on creating this company that you and I worked with. Yeah. And, you know, I had met Chris Albert at UCSB when I used to like process his GI Bill paperwork. And then I met up with him, and he and I created Warrior Soul, the veterans clothing line side of the company.
I remember.
2014.
I remember it.
You know, it's kind of just been a lot of steps of like kind of just doing a little bit at a time, figuring it out as I went. I always say that the Marine Corps was the best and worst experience of my life. the best because, to be honest, growing up with no dad and like, I don't know, having a lot of fears and insecurities, I was able to push my body and mind to its limits in a way that, to be honest, you can only do in the Marine Corps infantry.
Yeah,
And
so I've heard.
even though I was in a reserve unit, I got to serve with a lot of NCOs who were active duty prior, and they stood out so much. And when I went to OCS, even the staff NCOs that were running that, you get to see a different type of man. That leadership that you pick up on, to be honest, it's just indescribable. Like there's just something very different about good Marines.
Yeah, and it's funny because so I grew up in a military family. My brother's in the military. My father was in the military. All my grandfathers in the and they're all in the Army. But I went a different route. I went into, like I told you, I went into military martial arts, which was kind of my way, more of the easier route maybe to some people. But for me, it was still tough training, and I struggled as a young kid with confidence and things like that. Kind of to what you're mentioning, there's something about that military training. There's something about the level of training that you get where they break you down mentally, they build you up, they create self-confidence. I mean, shit, like, wouldn't you even maybe say that some of the good things that come out of it is your entrepreneurship, your ability to survive on your own because of that fucking grit you get from those trainings? I mean,
oh yeah,
maybe I'm wrong, but
over the years, I've actually like just adopted this mentality that everything comes back to fundamentals. So at the core, everything's the same. So if you're really good at something and you suck at something else, there's no reason why you have to be bad at the other thing. If you have the skills, you just have to translate them. Like, what does it mean from this discipline to another one? That's it. And then the other thing is some people will just be impatient in learning something new. It's like, you got to give yourself that time. You weren't always good at the other thing.
Right.
So,
that's like where it kind of separates between giving, like, people that give up or people that persevere and push through to hone those crafts.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's like a perception that people, like, it's funny, like people, they look around and they'll say stuff like, "Oh, I'm so jealous," or whatever, and they don't realize all the shit that goes into that athlete being so successful or that entrepreneur being so successful and all the failures that they made and all. It's like all that shit that adds up to that success.
I was just gonna say, like, even you've seen my photography over the years.
Amazing.
I would say I do have a natural gift with like my vision for photography, portraits especially. I didn't just develop where I'm at now overnight. That's taken years. And I feel like every day I'm still learning more, but I love it, so I continue to do it. And that's a really cool way to connect with somebody. And most of the time when people see my photography, they're like, "You took those?" Like, because I don't look like a normal photographer, whatever that means.
Right, what people classify as like a photographer, these stereotypical eccentric people that, like, "Oh, you don't look like a..." But it's funny because when I saw your photography, I had the same thing. I was like, "Oh shit, like, I didn't know this guy does this. Like, these are amazing photos," like, very impressed. Like, and again, to your point, it's like, I'll compare it to me and my obsession in health, right? Health and Eastern philosophy and martial arts. I read a ton. I study a ton. And when shit rambles off, people think you're just like, "Oh, you're so smart. You just know this shit." No, it's like you said, you're studying your craft. You're reading and troubleshooting and working with the camera and changing lighting and all those things that come into play. Your subject, the foreground, the background, all those aperture. So yeah, man,
always asking more questions, getting better, not getting complacent. Really is what it comes down to.
Or stuck. So how does this kind of apply to the things, some of the things that you've done in your life? I mean, you've run a really successful print company. You've done it for years. What are the things that you've taken from your past experiences, and what are those things that made you successful in these entrepreneurial, avenues? Because I think people need to hear that too, right?
I grew up with literally nothing. So my mom tried her best, and she really did do everything she could. She worked multiple jobs. From a young age, I ended up having to figure out how to get things done on my own. Like, the first job I ever got, I was 13 years old. I asked someone that was at church who I knew had a business. I was like, "Hey, can I work for you?" Clearly, you can't work at 13. But he was like, "Yeah, just come to my house on Saturday." And now I know that he didn't actually have work for me to do, but he was just like, I'm just gonna make him do errands around the house, you know? So like,
Right.
um, so I like mowed the lawn and like organized the shed and like random little jobs like that. And I started making money, you know, and then he owned properties. So I remember he gave me a sledgehammer once and he's like, just destroy this bathroom, don't break any pipes. That was the only instruction he gave me. So I like, because they were going to renew a bathroom or remodel, I'm sorry. And I just wrecked this bathroom. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, I'm going to hit this and eventually it's going to break and I'll throw it outside and we're cool.
Oh
So, you
my
know, I
God.
started learning that. And I honestly, I use that money to buy clothes. I don't know, like anybody listening right now, but getting Gatorade after PE in middle school is a big deal. You know, if you don't
Wow.
got even $1 to do that, like you see everybody else drinking Gatorade, you're like, oh, I really wish I had $1.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. And I think that if you haven't been that kid without the dollar, you don't know what it feels like.
Right.
But that's what I was using my money for, or buying chips at lunch. Because, like, you know, my mom wasn't buying individual small bags of chips to send me to school with. She would just buy the big bag that we all shared at home,
Right.
you know, so I could buy my own bag of chips at school. And that's kind of what started it. So, anyway, when I had this identity crisis of I'm not going to be a Marine officer anymore, I'm not going to do military life, I was like, what am I going to do? You know, I had like a little dark time there, and that's it happened to line up with the opportunity to start this company. So I actually sold my car. I remember selling my guitar and my amp because I used to play guitar in college. I sold anything that was worth anything,
Wow.
and I was like, cool, I'm gonna go all in on this.
Wow.
And I didn't want to pay rent in my apartment and my shop, so I actually lived in the back of my shop, which was definitely not cool. I
Those
did,
are the means of survival.
yeah, I did for 2 years, you know, and that included when Chris wrote my first workout program, because you know our buddy Chris, he
Hmm.
took me on as a client, and I would walk like it was either 30 or 45 minutes to the gym. At the end of my day, I would work out and then I would walk back to my shop. And then, you know, I was actually in the same shopping center as a Ralph's. So I would just buy food that was ready to eat at Ralph's every day.
Man.
So that's what I was doing. And like nobody knew. But I always thought, you know, I've lived worse. When I was a kid, life was hard. Like, you know, I have more money now, but I was like, I believed that it would pay off eventually. I remember it was like 2015 maybe that I like, because I used to keep track on the map. Where did I ship? It was about 2015, you know, 3 years in that I was like, I've shipped to every state in the US now.
Holy shit.
It's been quite a journey to say the least, but it was just like, how bad do you want this?
When you hit on something really impressive there, which is to your point. If you've never had that struggle, right? Because we've all got different struggles in life, and yours particularly has to do partially with financial well being. And but to your point, like because you had so little, everything seems so much better beyond that. So that I feel like that gave you the grit, like that gave you the shit to move on, and that the shit to kind of overcome. Because to your point, some people like if you took and apologize anybody that gets offended by this. I went to school with some wealthy fucking kids, and if you took everything from that wealthy fucking kid and put him on a street, he'd fail because he didn't he or she had everything. You know what I mean? They didn't have to struggle. They didn't have to earn the dollar as hard as somebody else. So I feel like that's a secret to a lot of people's successes. When you hear stories of people's successes, I mean, Grant Cardone's another one. He talks about how didn't have a lot of money growing up at all, and look at him now. The guy's a multimillionaire, maybe even billionaire. I mean, look at what his stats are. But there's that common
Yeah.
thread of like coming from nothing and making something,
Yeah.
and I feel
Well,
like
and it
that.
also goes back to even just that attitude. Because even if, you know, I'll say this because I've been asked about, you know, will you turn away kids that come from families with money? And
Right.
what comes to mind is some of those kids, like, they have the attitude, so they will still be resilient and they'll adapt, but a lot of them won't. I don't really like to judge people because I understand that everybody's ultimately in a different place in their life.
Right.
And sometimes some of my friends will like complain about something and I don't ever be like, well, that's not a real problem. You know, like I'll be like,
Yeah.
I'll just listen and it'll just remind me like the world's just very diverse. That's kind of what I write it off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I understand you're struggling with that. I hope that you figure it out soon.
Yeah, yeah, because everyone has different struggles, and everyone's
Yeah.
struggles to themselves are literally the biggest problem ever. But to
Yeah.
everybody else, there maybe not be. But you're right. Everyone's got struggles. Whether
Yeah.
they're manufactured struggles or their financial struggles or their, like I share with you, I was jumped at the age of 21. I never thought it would impact me, and it did. Matter of fact, I remember for many years, less now, but for many years, whenever there was a loud bang, or I'd see someone kind of coming up my rear, I would kind of jump. These kind of built-in things that happen through that trauma. But so yeah, again, mental, right? No one knows I'm walking down the street. They don't know who I am. They don't know what I'm going through. I maybe don't look like I'm struggling financially, but I could be struggling mentally.
Yeah.
And so this brings up another point too, which is mental well-being, right? You talked about these kids, and I want to get into the program and really get into why we're having this bigger conversation. But really importantly, which I think is a common thread between yourself and myself, as well as the overarching companies, Wisemen and the Warrior Soul Youth Academy, is the mental mindset, the foundational belief systems, what these kids are learning, and things that you've even shared with me, if you want to share with the folks listening, things that we learn since early childhood that become ingrained in us, and they're very hard to untrain. We all have them, all of us, some worse than others, but we have these self-doubt belief systems that say we can't do it, we're not good enough, we're not going to make it. And a lot of people fail because of that. When you look at the neuroscience and you look at reshaping belief systems and retraining your cognitive, your neurofunction and how you operate, right? All those things, your subconscious. So, maybe talk a little bit about that, because I know you and I had some discussions about what you do for mental training, what you do to prime yourself, what you do to bake into these programs that you're creating.
The most important thing that I've learned to cope with things is honestly meditation. And I know, like, depending on where people are at, like, they might be like, what do you mean meditate? Like, everyone
Right.
can have their own idea of what that means.
Right.
And so I'll just explain, chasing that state of no mind. And that literally means exactly what it sounds like. It means that your mind is not in the driver's seat in your head. A lot of people think meditation is like, oh, I'm going to like sort through problems or whatever, like, or I'm going to think about this. That's just overthinking.
Right.
It is actually, you find all solutions in that absence of thought. I'll use sports as an example. The highest performance in athletics happens in the state of no mind. In fact, a lot of times people will injure themselves or they miss a rep. It's because they're mentally, like, the mind comes in. Like, if you're sprinting, you can actually see sometimes watch, like, if you watch Usain Bolt, he's not thinking about anything.
Right.
He is literally just present in that moment. He is sprinting. His body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, but he's literally just performing. I think that in movies, a lot of times, like, let's say like when Rocky's getting his ass whooped or something, like, he like flashbacks through all of these thoughts, like, of him training and adversity and stuff. And I think movies are responsible for people thinking that your motivations are all your adversity, and that's what makes you perform.
Right.
But it's not really how. I don't believe that's how it works.
No, and if I may interject, I think
Yeah.
I think you're right. I never even thought about this till you said it, but I think those things happen before the action. Like, you process those things, and then you're like, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to lift weights, or I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to do a 10K. But you're right. You don't think about it in the moment. Because even when I do martial arts, like when I'm doing my forms, to your point, the moments where I feel the best and where the technique looks the best is the moments I'm not thinking about the movements. It's where the body
doing
goes,
that.
it just does it. It just gets right in the fucking present moment, so much so that you're almost like escaping. You're like jumping reality. You're like it's a weird feeling,
So it took me a long time to learn that.
Yeah.
That whole little scenario we just talked about. I didn't understand it. And it's even the same thing. I'll hear people say that they're going to throw on music to get amped up in the gym. For me now, music doesn't amp me up. Music literally is almost like a choice. Like, I like the background. I don't need it anymore, because when I'm actually working, it doesn't matter what's playing. And I think that that's a huge thing to realize for anybody listening. If you rely on music, you're really just using music as a tool to snap into a state of no mind.
Yeah,
So
it's
challenge
almost a
you to
distraction. It's
reflect
almost
on
an
that.
escape. Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's almost like a distraction or another escape. It almost
Yeah.
turns out to be that way. You
Hmm.
know, it's funny too because there's, you know, who Paul Chek is? Chek Institute.
I have heard of him, but I'm not super familiar.
Dude's amazing. He's like one of the, like, you know, he's one of the guys that's created a lot of these new age fitness routines. Like, matter of fact, I think the like the ab ball, the ball, like I think he was one of the first guys to use those balls in physical fitness and stuff. Really great guy. Look him up. But interestingly, he doesn't listen to music. He listens to like spiritual dialogue. It's not even. It's like it would be something that most people look at and they go, "Oh my god, it would make me tired." Like I wouldn't even listen to that. But to your point, you know, he's not using anything to amp himself up. He's actually using it to kind of subconsciously prime himself. But I think the point is he doesn't need that like rocky anthem, you know, or like heavy metal. He's not looking for any of that. He's already self motivated.
Yeah. Funny enough, there are like some more shamanistic tracks that I've like actually adopted into my training. And sometimes like I'll even put one on repeat and not realize that it was playing for like most of the workout.
That's
I'm
super
not even
cool.
kidding.
You'll have to share those with me, man. That's super cool.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will.
I'm intrigued. Yeah.
That has been the hugest thing. And I think that it was just like understanding that there's nothing to hide from. It already happened. I already lived through it. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to fear going back and examining my childhood. Right. I don't have to fear anything about my human experience timeline, is what I like to call it, because it already happened. If I have the opportunity to go back and dissect an event in my life, why wouldn't I want to be the master of that? Yep. Because that's how I see my trauma now. Why would I want something that happened that I had no control over to affect my everyday life now, especially if it happened years ago? You know, I didn't choose that.
Right.
It happened to me.
That's, you know, that's so powerful, man, because that's exactly why a lot of people struggle. They get stuck in that. They live in the past.
For a long time.
Yeah, me too. Me too. You know, guilty as charged. It took a long time to face it. And I think too, like we talked about this, like men in general in society are not taught to face their feelings. They're not taught to express their feelings. They're not taught to accept them and work through them. They're taught to stuff them, generally speaking, right? Not everybody, but most people, most men in society, to kind of suppress these emotions or these traumas. And yeah, by no means is it easy work to like you're saying, to accept these things and work past them. But man, it's so fucking liberating.
When you bottle anything up, that phrase exists for a reason. It's going to burst eventually. And some people don't realize that by hiding from those emotions and feelings, they're unconsciously passing on that trauma or projecting it onto someone else. And because we tend to do that to the people we love the most, you end up hurting the people you care about the most without realizing it. Totally. And anyone listening, if you find yourself apologizing to your loved ones because you're at times acting like a shitty person and you don't want to be, that's probably a sign that you need to evaluate some things that you've been running from. You know, like, why would you want to continue to hurt the people you love?
Yeah, that's powerful, man. It's powerful. I think too, like, if I may add to that, is like, at least there's an acknowledgement, there's an awareness to it, versus not even saying sorry at all.
Yeah.
Like you're not.
And I'm not gonna lie, man. In my discovery of all this, I realized, like, damn, I have fucked up in the past. And when I wasn't aware of any of this and I wasn't living a more holistic life, you know, I hurt people and I wasn't even aware. I was still actually like in a victim mentality where I thought the world has been really hard for me.
Yep.
And dude, the world's just tough.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not an excuse to project that pain onto someone else.
So true. So true.
Yeah.
So tell me this too, man. Like, so what is, like, you're mentioning holistic living and stuff like that. And what does it look like for you? Like, because dude, you're, first of all, if no one's ever seen Albert or even knows who he is at this point, you need to look him up. This dude's a fucking beast. Okay. I admire, like, looking at your competitor, you know, when you're in competition and like the physique and the workouts. So maybe share with some people, like, what is your daily routine, man? Like, what does it look like? Because I think that'll give people a sense of where to start, or even places that they maybe want to adjust their life. And
Yeah.
I think that would be helpful.
Well, lately I've actually been in recovery because I tore my musculotendinous junction in my pec.
Oh,
So yeah, I broke programming and I hurt and I benched a little too much, and it literally sounded like somebody wrinkled bubble wrap. It
oh,
was it was bad. And actually, this will tell you where I'm at. I like immediately let go of my hand, and I was holding the it was 270 on the bar, and it wasn't a 1 rep max. Just for anybody listening, I
damn.
don't do 1 rep maxes. Like that was going to be a working set, but I
Listen,
wasn't
folks,
recovered enough
fucking beast.
to
Fucking
do
beast.
it. I literally on the second rep, it just gave out. And then the dude who was spotting me, who worked there, he was like freaking out. He's like trying to pick it up off me. I was like, "You're not going to upright row this, bro." I was like, "Just take the plates off." So he
Oh
took the
my
plates off.
God.
Once I got off the bench, I burst into laughter, like hysterical laughter. I'm not kidding you, because I thought it was hilarious that my arrogance allowed me to break programming to try to bench that heavy a second time that week, when I usually do my heavy working sets every third week.
Wow.
So
Talk about
it's like,
ego, huh?
yeah, and that's where I was like, why did I do this when I
Yeah.
could have just chilled and followed programming the way that I know it works?
Right.
I just was feeling on top of the world that day, and obviously I paid for it. Okay, so when I'm not injured, um, I wake up, I walk my dogs, I stick to almost the same foods every day. I like to keep a simple diet because the less I have to think, the better. That way I have more bandwidth to make bigger decisions.
Smart.
You know,
Smart. What
if
is
I have
that?
to
What
think,
is that food? What's the foods?
I pretty much eat rice, quinoa, chicken, or fish every day. If I eat red meat, I eat top sirloin.
Okay.
It's one of like the leaner red meats. I like it a lot. Yeah, I'm really big on chia seeds and flax seeds in my smoothies.
Veggies? Like, are you doing
Um,
veggies? Are you bringing in a lot of greens or no?
so I'll do spinach for my veggies, and I'll do mushrooms. I love mushrooms.
Nice.
But to be honest, there's a super greens powder that I use, and again, because of simplicity, that's pretty much like what I rely on more than actual greens. It's something that I want to change, but up until now, it's been more like I don't want to go to the grocery store that many times
Right.
because it's hard to keep fresh veggies, and like sometimes it'll go bad, and then I feel bad that I didn't eat them in time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh, bell peppers too. I actually love doing, because I eat like a lot of stir fries. So I'll throw bell peppers and mushrooms in that. I have prioritized sleep a lot more lately. I'm not wearing it right now actually because it's charging, but I wear a device called Whoop that helps track my recovery.
Yep.
And even though I feel like our tech's not quite there, it does allow me to monitor for a trend. So I'll know,
HRV
okay, hmm?
or your stress trend or your HRV.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So it uses HRV. It monitors like your quality of sleep. It'll actually tell you this much percent was in deep and REM sleep, which is
Right.
good. If it's too much, it says you're probably catching up from not having it the last few days.
Right.
Those little things. And I'll be like, okay. And I can always like, run it parallel with how I actually feel. I'm learning now because I've worn it for about a year. It's pretty accurate now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I use the Fennec 6. I got it on right now.
Oh, sweet.
I do it too. The interesting thing about this one is it's great for training, not great for sleeping because it's bulky. So sometimes I don't wear it at night, and then I got
Yeah.
to put on it. I got to put on the dual HRM band to get the HRV. So it's kind of a
Oh,
pain in
yeah.
the ass. Didn't think
Yeah.
about that when I bought it, but yeah, Whoop. I heard Whoop is amazing. I have a friend that wears. Actually, one of the co-founders of Wisemen wears Whoop. He loves it.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah. So
Yeah,
so
I
you
enjoy
manage
it for that trend, like I said.
Yep. So you're managing your sleep. Like, what are you doing? Like, what's your routine for that? Like, so you walk your dogs in the day. You've got a refined meal plan. When are you squeezing in your fitness activity between work, and then what time are you going to bed, and how many hours are you maxing out?
To be honest, that varies, and it also like it has gotten better as I have gotten to heal more, because I like basically as I've gotten better, it comes down to self-respect. It's like, you know what, I need to respect myself enough to go to bed right now. The days that I stay up late because I'm like working or whatever, because that day I guess that part of me got the best of me. I at least consciously know I'm catching up on work because I procrastinated, or I'm doing this because I have anxiety that I'm not going to get it done in time or whatever. And then that's become less now. But like I said, whenever I break from my patterns, it is more conscious. I try my best to go to bed by midnight.
Okay.
And luckily, I don't have to set an alarm because I'm self-employed and I get to make my own schedule.
Yeah.
I'm usually up naturally anywhere between 6:30 and 8:30,
Wow.
depending on like what my body tells me.
So you get 6.5 to 8.5 hours, or 6.5 to 8 hours of
Yeah.
rest.
Don't get me wrong. On some days, if I'm like especially tired, I might sleep like 9-10 hours.
Oh, dude, amazing,
Yeah,
amazing. I wish I
it
could
is.
do
And then I
that.
wake up and I'm like, oh, I needed that. And I don't even feel guilty because now I have other stuff I have to get done and I just feel better. So
Yeah.
that's another thing. It's like, I think that sleep is something that sometimes people think of as like a waste, when in
Yeah,
reality, it's an
totally.
investment. It's an investment in like everything about you. Sleep is so underrated. It's like if
You're nailing it, man, because it's literally like a means to an end for people. Like it's a nasty byproduct of life. I
yeah,
gotta sleep now because it's what I have to do to go to the next. It's so true, but like I'll tell you too, I'm in my 40s, and I've noticed. And again, I don't drink anymore. I don't I try to go to bed at a reasonable hour, so I have a pretty even understanding of what my sleep's doing for me. If I don't get 8 hours, if I don't get at least 7.5 to 8 hours, I'm totally off. I see it. I feel it. My productivity's off. My mental function's off. My mood's off. You're so right. It's one of the most underestimated. Matter of fact, it's one of our key pillars in our company because of that. Because most
yeah.
people think rest is just, I don't need it. Like, and you probably have friends like this where they're like, oh, I don't need 8 hours of sleep. I could run on
Oh,
5. I could run on 5. And I
yeah,
don't think,
exactly. Well, even like in the Marine Corps, right? Sleep was non-existent often.
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I told you, like, I only got a taste of it through my experience. I can't even imagine what the active duty guys did, or the guys who went to Afghanistan. Like, and my point is, I've heard people say like, oh well, when I was in this, we didn't sleep at all. So then they try to justify why they're not sleeping now, and it's like,
Right.
wait. If anything, it's the exact opposite. You're not there anymore. You're not forced to not sleep. So
Right.
you be good to yourself now.
Right. You get right. Create a nice structured routine for nighttime, man. It's like so
Yeah.
crucial. Like just disease and all these other things that come from lack of sleep, the heart attacks, right? Like
Yeah.
things that are cardiovascular health. And people don't realize, like, when they're white knuckling through and they're like, I get 4 hours, I'm good. And it's like they pile down their 2 cups of coffee. They have no idea what's happening over time on a map of like their cardiovascular health, their brain function. Like it's just, yeah, man,
I
it's a
feel like
really
there are so many things we could talk about, so we'll probably have to continue some of these later. But
Probably, yeah. Because
we've been going,
I want to get to the Warrior Soul Youth Academy. So, if
yeah.
anyone hasn't seen this, we posted a video on the Instagram page that Albert released, and he's also, you got to check him out. What's the handle? Because I'm going to mess it up.
Oh, it's just Warrior Soul Youth Academy. warriorsoul.youth.academy.
There it is. So make sure you check that out because you'll get to see a lot of things that he's sharing about this program. But walk us through this. So I saw this video, as I mentioned. I was emotionally just fucking moved, and for many levels, right? Personally, and just knowing you and knowing who it's impacting. Tell us a little about how you got to this point, and tell us a little bit about this, well, more about this program and what you're doing and how people can help contribute to this cause.
Yeah, well, I've wanted to give back to the community for a long time. I Whenever I would hear like nonprofits come to me for printing, I always hooked them up. I worked with Special Olympics at one point. I worked with I was actually a mentor for shirt printing and design for 5 years with a local nonprofit. I loved that. I also taught a workout class at Juvenile Hall in 2019. And all I knew is that subconsciously, right? Because again, I've become more and more self-aware. I can catch myself that my intention was always there, like early on. I just didn't actually know it.
Right.
So I always knew that everything I've been through, I could use to help others. And I secretly always understood that in helping others, it would help my own healing process. I didn't know it in those words. I just knew it inside. Now I know them in the words. That's why I can talk like that. And so I remember thinking when I was teaching at Juvenile Hall, this sucks because it's just a little piece of heaven. Once a week for 2 hours, these kids show up to my class. They work out with me. They feel great. I see them every week. They're stoked. They're building muscle. They get out. There's no support system for them. They go right back to the life that ended them up in Juvenile Hall.
Right.
And my class didn't actually mean shit. So I thought to myself, what am I doing here? Am I doing this class to help these kids or to make myself feel better when I tell people, I teach a class at Juvenile Hall?
Right.
And they hit me that I was like, yeah, that's some fake ass shit. Because all I'm getting from that is people saying, oh, that's so cool. Albert teaches kids in jail. But I don't give a shit about that because I'm not doing it for recognition. I wasn't. I was like, actually, my intent was to help those kids. But then it hit me. I was like, this is doing nothing for them.
Mm.
It is a possibility that maybe one of them gets out and they like keep working out on their own or something, and that keeps them off the streets. But there isn't even proof or guarantee of that.
Right.
So when COVID happened and everything got shut down, straight up, I lost a lot of my screen printing clients. Yeah. So I had a lot of quiet time, to say the least. And in that quiet time, I thought, okay, so I have a business. I always said I wanted to use it to help. I have helped. But what tangible proof do I have that I impacted anyone's life? And I realized I don't. And so I thought, what can I do to make that change? And I thought, well, every time that I'm so busy screen printing shirts that I can't eat properly, or that I go to bed late, that I miss training, that I can't do cardio, that my dogs were neglected all day. I have 2 dogs. I was like, I get pissed.
Yeah.
And then I'm secretly thinking, I have to keep making these shirts or whatever because it's what's feeding me and, putting a roof over my head. But whenever it gets so busy that I can't do what I love, I get upset. So that's when I realized, okay, well, I've already been working on transitioning to a career in fitness. Why don't I just do that to start? And instead of doing it backwards, I'll just start helping and I'll make a living helping. So then I started drawing this outline of like, well, how? Who am I going to help? And immediately I knew, okay, if I take adult clients, a lot of adult clients in the fitness world, unfortunately, they're already set in their ways.
Yeah.
Most of them, no offense to anybody, all they care about is themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm probably a minority of people in the fitness world that will actually say that out loud, but they do. They just want to look good. They want someone else to be like, recognize that they lost weight or whatever. It's not for them really. It often is externally motivated, which is fine because maybe that motivation changes over time.
Right. Maybe some people change, not all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a child in 6th grade who is at the crossroads of, am I going to join gang life or am I going to go to this program? A child who grew up like I did, who has no parents really, or whose parents are there but not really there,
mm-hmm.
They actually need someone. And they deserve that patience and compassion that I'm putting together with this program. I feel like if I'm going to invest my time and energy into anyone, it's not going to be an adult that wants to have a 6-pack to show off on Instagram.
Right.
I want to work with some kids who have nothing the way I did. So I have to go back to my roots and create that permanent change, because they're going to end up being very successful adults through my program, and they're going to create change later.
It's so deep on so many levels when you, like what you just said, because it's so true. Kids are so impressionable and they're so moldable, whether good or bad.
Yeah.
So now you've created this structure on this program and you're working on trying to get, I guess first of all, you're raising money to start this gym and this program, and
Mhm.
your goal is to open up more locations of this around these more I guess neighborhoods where children are less fortunate, or places where there's not as much financial stability, so that they have
Yeah.
access to this stuff.
Yeah,
Equipment.
my goal is to open the first one here, and just once I can prove that the model works, and I feel comfortable, I guess, walking away from the first one enough to like where it kind of can run on its own with good people, I'll open a second one, and then continue to expand it and just keep going. I mean, I just don't really see what else I want to do with my time. I feel like this was my calling, and it's just something I feel really good about.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing to find that. It's so amazing to like have that where you're like, I don't give a shit about anything else. Like, this is literally what I want to do now. So now, where is it going to be? What town is it going to be in that you're going to open this first location?
Yeah, so I've lived in Santa Barbara now for, I mean, since 2007. So I'm going to open the first one here. I mean, I've just been here so long. Everybody here knows me. I'm kind of like trying to do more in the community, kind of get my name out there. There are things that I'm still getting in line, but that fundraiser I put together, has served as a good awareness campaign, so that once like I have more, how do I say it? Once I'm like running a little faster, people aren't hearing about it for the first time.
Right.
Because it's funny how even with that, how slow it's been for like people to catch on. But I've known this, because every time I start a new project, it takes time. It takes time for people to catch on. Sometimes people don't even believe you at first. Like it's how it goes. So I was like, you know what? I'm putting this out. I don't care. You guys hear about it. And now I'm getting even more and more feedback. It's almost like as time passes, it becomes more real. And yeah, so I know that eventually I go to LA. I know there's a lot of neighborhoods in LA that are struggling hard. I know Santa Barbara is a more wealthy city as a whole, but guess what happens when you have wealthy cities like that? There's little pockets of the exact opposite that gets no media attention, and we almost pretend it's not really there because we don't want it to make the city look bad.
That's right.
And actually, that's definitely something that's happening in this town.
Yeah, you don't want to. Right, it's like the skeletons in the closet kind of thing. Like, don't pay
exactly.
attention. Look at the shiny stuff we got on the surface.
Yeah, and I'm from San Diego, so I do intend to go home to San Diego to open one there, or a couple. It's a big enough city where there can be more than one. And I just know eventually I have to go to other states. I have to. There's other states in need too. So I'll be growing old, making this a bigger place, and I imagine as I grow and money is not an object, I'll be able to hire good people, and I'm not the only person who sees this vision. So I feel like finding people who truly believe in what I'm doing will get easier over time, as just living my truth and putting my message out.
I totally agree with that, man. It's like it's persistency, it's consistency on your mission. And like you said, it's not about financially driving. It's not about the money. It's about your vocation and your mission, and your financial stability will come from that. Not to mention, to your point, the minute you started getting children into this program, that's going to speak volumes of, because listen, I know you on a personal level, but once they get to meet you and work with you and work your program, I have no doubt that this thing is going to be huge. I said that to you before privately, like, this is a really amazing venture. I think it's powerful, and I think you're going to have a lot of people get on board once you get your message out there. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
So so right now you have a GoFundMe campaign. How do people donate to that if they're listening? Like, how do they contribute? And I'll put a link too in our YouTube notes when we post this, but how can they do that?
Yeah, well, just that link. I'm actually making a shirt for everybody who's donated, and I have some other ideas of things that I'm going to do. But, a lot of times, like, people forget that every dollar really does help. So maybe some people like want to give a certain amount, but they can't, so then they don't give anything at all. But it really would be better to have even $1 than nothing, because $1 from every person, it adds up to a lot of money, and it's like it really does help.
Yeah. So anybody that's listening, please, if you're moved by this and you understand kind of the depths, and you've seen what Albert's doing and you've checked out his pages, please, if you feel compelled, give anything. because this is an amazing mission that I want to see come to life. I'm going to donate myself. And I just think I think you found your calling, man. I think this is like, you could tell how passionate you are and how excited you are about it and how much you know about it and how much you love working with the kids. And so I think this is just absolutely outstanding, which is why I wanted to get on and do this today, man, because this is like, I'm like,
it's really awesome to get to talk to you on this level versus in the past where we were talking about like design and shirts and stuff. It's just so much different.
That's a snooze fest, man. Talking about, vectors and CMYK. And that's so boring. No one wants to hear that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that first time, we like ran through so many samples getting your colors right on those canvas keys.
Oh, yeah.
Very different context now.
Totally different. And I actually really enjoy this. I mean, I'm passionate about creativity, but this is really where it's at, right? I think we'll be doing more of these. I think we'll be able to have more live chats and even check-ins on what you guys are doing, what's your progress, and who's getting rolled into the mix. And maybe one day when all this gets set up and we can actually freaking travel with less restrictions, I want to come and visit. I want to come see the place and get it up and running.
Well, actually, you're someone who I always thought I would want to have on for, I talked about the career development side of things. I would love for you to be able to talk to them about what you've done and how you've gotten to make a living off of design and, your martial arts background and all of that. So
love to share.
The kids, they need role models and they don't need to idolize celebrities. They need to also understand that everyday people are making it happen.
Yeah. Oh, see, that's first of all, yes, I would love to do that. And thank you for thinking about me. But you just made another interesting point is in a world of social media and access to all of information, people keep seeing these millionaires and billionaires and how much they have and how successful they are. But no one understands, like, you can't connect with those people. You almost feel like it's unattainable because they're not showing you the middle road, all the things that happen in between. And so your point, people that are doing this every day that aren't multimillionaires, that have been doing it year after year and working and grinding, much more relatable than people that are driving around in fucking private jets and Lamborghinis. Like, I can't relate to that, So you're right on, man. You're right on. And kids don't care about those things. They care about value. They care about connection. So it's really important. Well, dude, thanks, man. Thanks for doing this. Like, I know we could talk for probably another 3-4 hours on this stuff. And I
almost think it'd be cool, like down the line, to get into some of the other concepts, like more individually. That'd be fun.
I would love to. Some of these, I don't like the term biohacking, but some of these biohacking modalities and anxiety or stress modalities and meditation. Yeah, I'd love to talk about that because,
well, even like, breaking down like identities and what we allow ourselves to be tied to, that creates blockages in getting better.
Yeah. Or even like even emotion storage. Like, we store emotions through trauma, or we store emotions through thought. And those are blockages too, right? Yeah, we could totally get into a lot of this stuff, and I definitely think we should do it. I definitely think we should do it.
I hope anyone listening, feel free to chime in and give us your thoughts in the comments. That'd be cool.
Please do. Comment on this. Let us know what was helpful, outside of obviously an amazing mission that Albert's spearheading. But let us know if there's things that we talked about here that you thought about or that you want to work on. And, we'd be more than happy to make some things that will address those questions or those interests. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Awesome.
All right. We're going to talk soon, brother.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me on.
You got it, man. Best of luck, dude.
Thank you. I'll talk to you again later.
You got it.
Bye.
All right.